So we're going to go ahead and start the last lesson, chapter 5, which is systems of linear and quadratic equations. So you're going to be getting 2 equations for every problem that you're doing. You have 10 on your paper. If they're not set equal, like y equals, you need to do that first. Set them up where they're y equals to whatever equation they have. One of them will be quadratic, one of them will be a linear. Once you do that, we're supposed to solve this by substitution. By substitution, what do we mean? If this is y and this is y, according to the equation, then I should be able to set them equal to each other and solve for, and move everything to one side. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to get negative x squared plus 5x plus 6 equals x plus 6. Now, your goal is to move everything to one side, but always keeping the x squared positive. Is your x squared positive right now? No. So then that means, because it's not positive, I need to move everything to the right side. So when I move this x squared to the right side, I'm going to be adding x squared. So I add x squared on this side of the equal sign. What should I do with that 5x? If it's a positive, then I need to move it over, subtract 5x. And that positive 6, I must do what? Subtract 6. So now I have moved everything over. This cancels. Just be careful where you have moved everything to and put everything in order. The x squared is, there's just how many? One of them. So it's just x squared. I took care of that. I have a 1x and a minus 5x, which becomes a negative 4x. And what happens to the 6 and the negative 6? They cancel. So that's all I end up with. After you do that, we have to factor. And I told you, factoring is very important. If you don't know factoring, you're going to have a hard time from now on in Algebra 2. What do both x squared and 4x have in common? An x. So I should be able to factor out an x. When I factor out an x from x squared, what do I have left over?
Negative 4 and x.
I have an x from here, and from here I have a minus 4. So have I factored that? If I check, does x times x give me the x squared? Yes. Does x times the negative 4 give me this? Alright, so these here are my factors. That's not my answer still. We're far from the answer. So I still need to get each of these things and set them equal to 4. I mean, set them equal to 0. So I need to solve for my x values. But this one's already solved. But what do I have to do over here? Add 4, so x equals a positive 4. These are still not my answers. These are my x values, but I'm trying to find out what are my y values also. So you have 2 choices. I could plug in my x's into the first equation or into the second equation. Which one would be easier? The second, definitely, because it's a linear function. So what do? Let me just cross this out. So looking at the second equation, y equals, who's my first x? 0, 0 plus 6. And what is 0 plus 6? 6. So my point would be 0, 6. This is one of my answers. Then I have to also plug in the 4. Y equals 4 plus 6. And what is 4 plus 6? 10. So my point would be 4, 10. So this is my 2 answers. This, the 2 things in the box at the very end, that would be your solution of the system. Are we okay?
Yes.
Questions? So for example 2, these are the 2 problems. Are we ready? Example 2, these are the 2 problems. Are they already in y equals form?
Yes.
Yes. So what can I do with them already?
Move them substitute.
Substitute by setting them equal to each other. So I have 2x squared minus 5x plus 6 equals to 3x minus 2. So is your x squared positive? Yes. So we leave it there. Now we have to move everything on the right to the left. So this positive 3x becomes a minus 3x minus 3x. That positive 2 now becomes, that negative 2 now becomes a positive 2. So remember, x squared must stay positive to make your life easy. So this 2x squared, what is negative 5 minus 3? negative 8x, and then plus 8. So when we look at this polynomial, this quadratic, we look at the 2, the negative 8, and the 8. They're all divisible by what? 2. So let's make our life easier and factor out the 2. So when I factor out the 2 from 2x squared, what do I have? 1x squared. 8 divided by 2 is negative 4x. And 8 divided by 2 is a 4. Now, the only thing I need you to worry about is this part, what's inside of the parentheses. The 2 is not going to affect us in any way. So, do you remember back we had to make a little table, factors of the last number? So it's a positive 4 that add up to the middle number, which in this case it's a negative 4. The only factors of 4 are 1 and 4 and 2 and 2. Now, my last number is positive, middle number is negative, so that means both numbers must be negatives. Now, who's going to add up to the negative 4 that I need? The 2 and 2. These guys are the ones that are going to add up to negative 4 because these guys become a negative 5. So my factors would be x minus 2 and x minus 2, which in this case my answer is x equals to what? A positive 2. And this is the number I need so I could plug into the equation. So, who do I plug it into? The bottom one, y equals 3 parentheses 2 minus 2. That is 6 minus 2, which is 4. So what's my answer going to be? 2 comma 4. Now, do I have to do it twice? No, because it's the same answer. You get a 2 for each parentheses. So we're done with this one. And there's one more. The other one does require a little bit more work. Are there any questions on this problem? So, last one, example 3. Now this one's going to look a little bit different. What do you notice about this one? It's not what? It's not equal to y. So that's the first thing we need to work on. Make sure that both equations are in y equals form. So when we look at the top one, the first one, which one's the only one I have to move? The x. So I need to subtract x, and it needs to go somewhere in there. So my new equation is going to be y equals what? X squared minus x minus 6. Do we agree? Now for the second equation, who needs to move over? The x and the 2. Minus x minus 2 minus x minus 2. Over here they do cancel, so I end up with y equals negative x minus 2. Alright, now that I have that, I should be able to do what? Set them equal. So go ahead and work on this problem for right now. So when we set them equal to each other, I'm going to go ahead and set it up. What happens? Who are we moving? To the left or to the right? We're moving to the left, so we must add x and add 2. Add x and add 2. Yeah, sorry. So we end up with x squared. What happens to the x's here? They cancel. And negative 6 plus 2? Negative 4. Now, this is one of those perfect squares. Because can you take the square root of 4? It's a minus, right? So this should become x plus and an x minus whatever the square root of 4 is, which in this case it's 2. If you didn't remember that way, then fine, do the little table. Negative 4, and for it to add up to 0, because there's no 0 number. 1, 4, 2, 2. Who's going to give you the 0? The 2 and the 2. So my answers are x equals negative 2 and x equals positive 2. But am I done? I still have to plug them into the problem, right? The second equation, y equals negative, but in this case my x is what? Negative 2 minus 2. So what happens when you have these two negatives together? They become a big plus. And what is 2 minus 2? 0. So I have my first point, negative 2, comma, 0. Which is my first answer. Second answer, y equals a negative, but now I'm substituting a positive 2, minus 2. So y is a negative 4. My answer, 2, comma, negative 4. So you might have questions with one answer. You might have questions with two answers. I think there's only one that has a one answer on your worksheet.
How do you put a, for the first one you put y equals plus 2, but before that it was negative?
Here? In this part?
Yeah.
Because you see the way it had a negative? But then my x that I was plugging in over here was a negative. So it was negative, negative. So two negatives together become a big plus sign. A negative times a negative is a positive. Are we good? All right.